You might have heard 10 different ways to run your consult calls for your practice. You might think you need to sell without really selling. The reality is, mastering your consult calls does not need to be complicated. When done right, it is one of the best ways to grow your practice without expending any extra effort. I'm going to walk you through a simple framework in this video to do just that. So if you like great information that you can implement tomorrow into your practice to see a big uptick, you're going to want to watch to the end of this video. My name is Griffin. I've built my own 7-figure business. I've also consulted on nearly 100 group practices at the 6-figure level, 7-figure level, all the way up to the 8-figure level. And these are the best practices that those practices use to convert more potential clients into actual clients. Okay, to get started, I can't talk about sales or consult calls without talking about psychology. The reality in any conversation is that about 70% of the communication is nonverbal. It's based on your tone. And your tone comes from the emotional state, what you're feeling in different points of the conversation. Now, the most important thing I can give you to running a great consult call is that you need to be confident, or you at least need to convey confidence to the person on the other end of the phone. The best way that I like to help my clients get this is to talk about the frame of the expert or the frame of the doctor. Okay, the doctor, how do they treat you when you come in for an appointment? They start asking you questions immediately. They're obviously, hopefully, caring and kind, but they're trying to get to an outcome. They're trying to figure out what's going on so that they can help. In the same vein, this is what we want to do in a consult call. We want to be a leader, start taking control of the conversation, start leading them to the outcome that we want, which is to understand whether or not we can help them. And if so, start to get them some help. So how do you gain confidence for your consult calls? Couple of quick hacks that I'll suggest. Number one, follow the framework I outline in this video or your own framework and keep it consistent each time. You build confidence when you do a lot of repetitions. So just do the same thing each time. You'll be more confident. Secondly, study on anything that you don't really understand. One of the biggest needle movers in improving your conversations for consults is understanding out-of-network benefits, especially if you're a private pay therapist. Now, if you don't really understand how it works, go learn how it works so that you can bring that into any conversation with potential clients and you can be the expert in guiding them through that process. Confidence is built in the work that you do, the studying, the actual work you do with other clients, as well as how many of these calls that you do. So if you're not great at it, just keep doing it and you'll get better. Same thing goes for admins on your team. You can do practice repetitions to improve the amount of practice and trial that they have in order to perform better for you and potential clients. All right, now let's talk about the consult call itself. It's pretty simple. We want to start the call. We want to bring people down, bring them back up, and then end the call. It's a little bit of an emotional roller coaster in a really quick time. And the point is to help people convey what they're feeling, give them a little bit of hope, and help to solve some of the nitty-gritty logistics so that they can actually start a session with you. All right, so let's break this down. We're going to break this down into 4 different sections for the call. Let's start off with the intro or the frame. So if you remember how I just said you want to be the expert in the conversation, the expert's going to take control of the call immediately. You don't want to have your consult calls where the other person is just asking you questions the entire time. So how do we like to start? We like to have 15 to 20 second intro. I'm going to give you some example scripts or different parts of these different sections in your consult call, but it's up to you to decide on what's going to be good for you. So an example would be like, hey, is this Samantha? Hey, this is Griffin from X, Y, and Z practice. I got your inquiry for our practice. Is now still a good time for a quick chat? Okay, great. The way these calls usually run is pretty simple. Takes about 10 to 15 minutes. All right, so now an example. Oh, hey, is this Samantha? Oh, hey, this is Griffin from X, Y, and Z practice. I saw your inquiry on the website. Is now still a good time to chat? Okay, great. Well, these calls are really simple. Just takes about 10 to 15 minutes. I'm going to ask you some questions to figure out what's going on with you. And then if we can help, I'm going to help connect you to the clinician who I feel like is going to be the best fit for you. From there, we'll iron out any logistics to make sure that getting started is really, really simple. That sound good to you? That's an example of a quick frame at the beginning of a call. What you're doing is you're framing out how the rest of the call is going to go. What that does for the person on the other end is it helps to answer a lot of the questions in their mind of what's going to happen. Do I have to ask the questions? Am I going to have time to get what I need? You're taking control really quickly to start asking them the questions so you can point them in the direction that they're going to need. So that's the intro. And the point of the intro is control, which builds safety for the other person. Okay? Next part is going to be discovery. The point of discovery is for you and them to get to an agreement on what's going on. Even if you know you can help this person based on what they put in on the inquiry, you still want to ask them some questions to make sure, and also for them to assert to themselves that yes, they do in fact need help. One of the things in terms of the psychology of the people on the other end is that many clients that are coming in inquiring about therapy are quite ambivalent. They want to do it, but they're kind of scared, but they don't know if they just need to do this on their own or they need extra support. And within that, what's really important is to ask them a couple of questions, to have them say, yes, this has been going on for a while. I'm in this pattern. I really need help to kind of get out. Now, the important point here, we're trying to keep it to 10 to 15 minutes. We do not want to go into a therapy session, okay? So we need to get surface level, but a little bit of the truth of what's going on with them. Some people are going to open up more naturally than others, but we want to kind of figure out what's going on so that we can really point them to a good direction. So as an example for some different questions, what's going on that had you reach out? Okay. How long has that been going on? Have you done anything to try and address this before? Have you been in therapy before? Very basic questions. You can add more to that. You can have even less and just have one question. But the point is to get a high-level overview, a high-level understanding of what their current situation looks like and what they're sort of looking for, okay? If they're like, I just called because I really want to do DBT and you don't do DBT, then right there you might go into a question about that to see if they can be redirected to someone in the practice or if that's just a non-starter right there. If, for example, they're struggling in their relationship, you want to hear the exact language that they're using to describe it, okay? The point when I say agreement is if they say, we can't get on the same page, we want to understand and even write down what that is, okay? At the end of this discovery session, which can be 5 minutes, 7 minutes, it could be even shorter, we want to say, okay, it sounds like, for the last 6 months, you and your partner have been kind of at a standstill. You feel like for you, there's experiences in the past that are causing this, that maybe there's difficulty for you to interpret what the other person is feeling, and that's causing you guys to not be on the same page. Is that correct? All right, so what's the next part of this? We can see as well the discovery. They're at kind of a neutral. They go to a little bit of a low. Now we're bringing them up high. What is this? This is the presentation, okay? What do we want in this phase? We want to have a 30-second, 1-minute elevator pitch on what we do and or what this specific clinician does. If you've got 10 different clinicians in the practice, you want to really know their strengths and what they're the best at, who they work with, and why they're passionate about doing the work, so that you can present that to the person on the other end of the phone. I have definitely experienced group practice owners who struggle to fill up their other clinicians, but it's really easy for them to fill up themselves. A lot of that also comes down to the confidence that they have in their clinicians and the way that they can confidently convey the work that clinician does onto a potential client, okay? So what's the point of the presentation? Well, just like discovery, we do want buy-in. It's sort of linked to discovery in that, just like you were saying, how you guys said you couldn't get on the same page? That's why one of the first things we're going to work on is your styles of communication, help you to understand how to work through these specific situations. You want to match what they said in discovery and how they're feeling towards what are the skills you're going to work on, what is the modality, what is the process going to look like to help them improve in these areas that they're experiencing. Now, you're not going to promise that they're going to feel 100% better, but you can say, hey, this is why you're feeling these things, and this is how we're going to help to make that better. Okay. The point of the presentation is that just like you saw these different parts of the discovery, is to lay out, hey, 1, 2, 3, this is how it's going to work. This is who this clinician is. This is why they're so good at what they do. Okay. A good presentation is, again, 30 seconds to a minute. You want to give them some time to ask some questions at the end of that with saying something like, does that make sense? Does that sound like that can potentially help? Okay. That helps people to be like, yeah, that sounds like exactly what I want. Okay. Now we're going to move on to the last piece. This I call logistics. Okay. If you are private pay, if you're insurance, people always have questions about logistics, especially if you've done a good job at the beginning of the call and they're like, yes, that sounds like exactly what I need. Now, what can be some logistical problems? Oh, it's $200 a session, and that's, I don't know if I can do that. Okay. This is a good time to talk through out-of-network benefits or how that might work. See if it can work for them specifically. Okay. Maybe they don't want to work on the high rate and there is someone who's more of an associate who you can pass them on to. The point of logistics is to problem solve. A lot of times people want to do things, but for one reason or another, there's a block in their mind around the money, around the scheduling, around the can I actually do this? And so you want to sit patiently with them and help them to get through the process. One of the biggest lifts in consult call conversion rates is if we can take the friction off of the plate of the client and help them to actually do the process. Okay. We still need buy-in from them, but a lot of big practices that I work with will submit out-of-network benefits on behalf of the client, so they don't even have to think about insurance. Same thing, if you're billing insurances, you want to be able to make it as easy as it can be for them to get started. Okay. The more hoops they have to jump through, the more they have to go find the information themselves to get started, the worse. So I like to just schedule people on that call after we have the money conversation or the insurance conversation. We walk them through how they're going to get their paperwork, how they're going to be able to get scheduled. Okay. If we've done a good job, we've set a proper frame, we sound like an expert, we have gotten them to feel very heard, and then for them to feel like this is exactly the solution for what they've been talking about, which ideally it is an amazing service that you're providing as well. And then we want to help iron out any logistics so that there is no problems that come up from them actually scheduling a session. Okay. So having that knowledge on the call is really, really helpful to being able to help them move forward, get scheduled. All right. So here's my challenge to you. If this makes sense, you might already have a lot of this in place, but I'm going to ask that you put a framework together. Okay. You can create a little Google Doc that has these 4 different sections, but create a framework 1, 2, 3, 4, and in general, what you're going to say on a call. If you can record one of your calls with a potential client and listen back to it, then you can set up, oh, okay, this is kind of how I talk about this part, and this is kind of how I talk about this part. Okay. It's really important that we do the best language we can at each part of this call. If it's just 10 minutes, then each word is really going to matter. How we say it's really going to matter. And also, we'll talk about it in a second, but hiring admins, we want them to replicate the process, not create their own process. Okay, so this is how we're going to work through that. So how do we master these consult calls beyond just knowing what to say? We have to do it every single time. So now let's talk about a scalable system. This is what the practices that are above the 7-figure level do. And similarly, the people that reach the 7-figure level, it's just about consistency in this process. You don't have a bad week or multiple weeks. You have the same process each time. You invest in the admins that are doing the calls, or you invest in yourself so you feel great having these calls. Let's talk through the key parts of building a scalable system. So we've already covered a good amount of it. Number 1 is your energy. And this can be a routine for you or a routine for your admins, okay? When do we review calls? Do we do it once a week? Are you having your admins come in person and so you're talking every single day? Hey, how's it going? How can I help? Are we going to review calls that they didn't really know how to handle once a week? We want to be able to invest in them or invest in ourselves if we're still doing the calls. Second, we covered a framework. You can build this out more to a script, But you want the language to be relatively similar each time. Each conversation is going to be natural, ideally, but you want it to be similar so that if you hire on multiple admins, they can just do the same thing. If your admin quits and you need to replace them, they can just do the same thing. Writing this down is really, really important to making it consistent week after week. And then recordings. Ideally, you have the founder with one or multiple recordings of different types of clients that you talk with using the framework that you lined up. And then as well, have recordings of your admins. You want to ensure that their style is going to match up with your style and that they can be consistent week over week. And then last piece of this is training and managing by the numbers. Over time, this system gets better and better when you are consistently focused on doing the best you possibly can on the calls. But we want to really track our numbers. We want to say, hey, we're at a 35% conversion rate on calls, as an example. So we had 100 inquiries and we brought in 35 new clients. Okay, well, is it reasonable that we can take that to 40? Maybe so, but we want to have a spreadsheet or a CRM where we can look at the reason people didn't move forward for everyone else, okay? Was it that we just couldn't get them onto the call, they just no-showed? Was it that we didn't take their insurance and that if we took this insurance, we'd increase the conversion rate? Was it that they just didn't feel like it was the right fit or they wanted to shop around? Based on what our, we call this an objection, is, we can create training to hopefully try and overcome that more often. Small adjustments that make an increase of 5% in your practice can make a massive difference at the end of the year. And it comes from this. It comes from looking at the data and then just gradually improving it. Okay, so all in all, this is the system for console calls. I don't try and give you exact words because your exact words need to be authentic and come from you. But I do want you to follow this framework or something similar where you're always an expert, you always feel confident, and if you don't feel confident after a call, you go study and you go learn what you need to so you do feel confident. You create recordings and that framework for other people, and then when you have other people doing this, you track the numbers so you can gradually improve. I've had practices go from 25% conversion rate on their calls to 40%, and with the same number of inquiries every single month, nearly double. Okay. It is a very simple thing that you can work on, but so worth it. All right. So if you enjoyed this is just one part of the $1 Million Plan for group practices. If you want to learn more, link in the bio.